which part of that big, beautiful bill fixes what was destroyed called the inherited IRA? It's gone. It's never coming back, in my opinion. And guess what? When you leave that $2 million IRA to your kids, that $1 million IRA, they currently have 10 years to get all the money out, which means it's going to force them into the highest brackets ever.
Welcome to Redefine Retirement with Ryan Wheelis, powered by Ally Wealth. This podcast explores how to live a limitless life of abundance in retirement with clarity, purpose, and confidence. Today, we're joined by my dear friend, Mark Henry, founder and CEO of Alloy Wealth Management and host of Living Large Radio. With over 30 years in finance, Mark helps Americans retire with clarity and confidence. After witnessing his parents lose much of their retirement on Black Monday, he dedicated his career to helping others avoid the same fate. Stay tuned. This is an episode you don't want to miss. Mark, welcome to another episode of Redefine Retirement with Ryan. And I want to share with the audience our history, bud, before we jump in here and get started.
Sure.
From your point of view, when's the first time you and I met?
Oh, gosh, it's got to be 15 years ago or
At
more.
least.
It was at one of these industry conferences, and you were the big dog, and I was the junior amateur leaving a different career and headed into this one.
I remember those days well, but it's just, it's awesome to see what you blossomed into, and you've done so many great things in our industry for so many people, not just end user client that we serve, both of our practices serve, but also advisors, bud. You've done just a lot of mentoring, coaching, and training advisors and adding a lot of value to get messages out to folks about retiring well in the 21st century and living large.
Yeah. Well, it's a passion, and that's really, though, how this business attracted me, going through what I'd done and, being extremely successful at a young age in life, and then seeing and feeling what it's like to basically be retired at a young age with a young family and just living large, and then deciding to go. I was too young to stay retired, and as you know, I went out and bought a few car dealerships and spent a bunch of money and had a great time, and it was the fiduciary thing to do. It was the right decision. I was being a good steward of our money. However, I didn't know that in 2005, don't go spend millions of dollars. It's not a good time, Mark. Here's what's coming in a couple of years. Who knew the '08 crisis was coming? And so, going through that and realizing what that felt, this became a passion project for me because, as you know, my father, on a day back in the day, lost all he was retired, living the life of his dreams down there in Jupiter, Florida. And so he, one day changed his life forever. And so when you think about things like that, I was like, man, this is just crazy. I had done everything right, supposedly, and yet there I was having to go back to work. And so this became a passion project for me, and it's the best thing that ever happened. People say, well, you really, you're happy. Of course, who's happy about losing money? I mean, nobody. I'm not happy, but I'm a better person because of it.
Well, you've come up with this concept, and it's a big personality, which both of you and I are subject to being, and it's called living large. Why living large? Where did you come up with it? What's the impetus behind it? What messages are you trying to convey to people?
Yeah, so living large is really the 5 F's. It's faith, family, fitness, finance, and friends. Because unfortunately, it's been my experience personally when I worked with the big box retail people when I was in a different industry. It was my father's experience, is that everybody focuses getting you prepared for retirement by focusing on one thing, a number, some mysterious number. There used to be a bank, what was it called? ING, and they ran these commercials, Ryan, you remember them.
Yeah, the guy walked around with a case, and had
a sign, and he said, what's your number? What's your number? And everybody thought there was some number. I thought that way. I thought I was going to be satisfied, comfortable with a number. I remember early in my career, and I'm dating myself, but I remember I told myself, I think I was out of school and making like $30,000 a year, and I told myself, if I could ever get to $50,000 a year, all my problems would be solved. Well, people are probably laughing, listening to this right now, because $50,000 a year ain't what it used to be. What really I learned out of all that was, as you know, Ryan, it's not about some mysterious number. So when I think about living large, It's about using what God's blessed you with to enrich the lives of your family, yourselves, and others to the best of your ability. But retirement is certainly not about some number.
No, it's not. And I remember that commercial, it was the ING commercial. And at the end, the neighbor was like, I don't really have a number. And the neighbor's like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, my number's a bazillion. I just throw some money at the problem and hope something good happens, right? And that,
Right.
that's also, saving to a number, but also throwing money at the problem and hoping something good happens. In either situation, neither one of those are a plan.
No. And that's the whole point, though, Ryan, is retirement is so much more than the finance part. Yes, retiring without money is not going to be fun. For the people that are trying to do it, make it off Social Security, God bless them, because I don't know how they'll ever do it. But imagine this, when you think about the 5 Fs, imagine retiring with what most would believe is a relatively large number. So you've got the finance part handled, but you have terrible health and you have no friends. Does that sound like a Ryan Wheelis retirement?
No, because the
It'd be
reality
horrible.
is I've been in this business since 2006-ish.
Yeah.
And ever since
You went through the crisis that cost me so much.
I started my firm in 2008, bud. In January 22nd, 2008, went independent, started my own firm. But my point is I don't know if I'll ever retire, because ever since I've been in this industry, I've never worked a day in my life.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do. And it is my identity.
When people question or consider, or not question maybe, but they look at the surprising growth we've had, it's truly because you've heard this forever. They claim that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, let me be very clear. I'd like to know who said that, and I would have some words with them, because I still know the difference between joining you at a beach somewhere with our families and actual working. However, when you do something you love to do, it doesn't feel like work. There is still away from work. There's still a life away from work. But when you're doing something you're passionate about, it's truly one of the best blessings I've ever had, which is why I believe in my heart God led me down a path that caused me to make those financial decisions that, looking back on them, were wrong. However, they were the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me something I'm truly passionate about, which is helping others. And if you help enough people, you will get what you want in life. I don't do it for those reasons. I know you, all those years ago, when you brought me under your wing, when you brought me to Texas and let me set in and watch how you did business. You didn't do that because one day we might do a podcast together. One day we might become friends. We weren't even really friends back then. We were acquaintances, but I wouldn't have said we were necessarily friends. And you didn't do it because of that. You did it because you generally had a passion for helping others. And that was not just clients. It was helping people like me that were in a wholly new industry and wanted to succeed in it. And I knew what I thought I knew about money, having had a good bit in my life. But guess what? It makes me a very competent advisor when you can actually say, hey, I've had money, I've lost money, and I know what it feels like. It actually, I think, makes me a much better advisor, because I don't want to ever do that again.
Yeah, you've been through it. And people get to the finish line, or what they think is the finish line, when they actually retire from work. But the reality is that's not the finish line at all. So, Mark, you said the traditional retirement playbook is outdated. It's no longer applicable. You and I both know the industry term for that is conventional financial wisdom.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some changes. I mean, what has changed, and what do people need to do today versus what they did in the past?
Well, there used to be a commercial car company called Oldsmobile that was running. They were trying to reinvent themselves. And they said, it's not your father's Oldsmobile. It's not your grandfather's Oldsmobile. Well, it didn't really work out for Oldsmobile. They're still gone. But they were trying to show they had new stuff. Well, the reality is, unfortunately, the world, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, but the toothpaste is out of the tube. I don't know if you ever tried to put toothpaste back in, but it ain't going back in. Well, let me be very clear. Retirement has changed, but yet the industry wants you to believe it still exists. And the best example I could give of this is I was asked the other day by someone, they had seen something that talked about the 60-40 portfolio. And you're finally getting some of the Wall Street firms finally acknowledging that it may not be what it once was. But the 60-40 portfolio, as you know, doing this much longer than my 20 years or whatever, is much still used throughout America. Would you agree with that?
For sure. What is the 60-40 portfolio?
Yeah, it was this idea that when you got ready to retire, you put your money in the Wall Street, you used a 60-40 portfolio, 60% equities, 40% bonds. And that was your safe portfolio that would allow you to retire, not lose all your money in Wall Street, get moderate growth, and you'd be fine. Well, first off, I don't know about you, Ryan, but we've both been married a while. When I go home and I ask Terry of 31 years, how was your day? And she says, fine. I'm like, uh-oh.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, so what did I do or not do? Well, let me be very clear. You don't want to hear the word fine from your financial advisor. Oh, you'll be fine. Well, that's the problem with the 60-40 portfolio. And there is something out now called AI. It's kind of out of the bottle. As the genie has left the tube, you ain't putting him back. And so literally I was asked this question on a newscast, and I said, well, don't ask me. Let's just ask artificial intelligence. And I literally typed in, and you can test me if you'd like, type into AI and say, is the 60 portfolio dead? And guess what AI said? If it's not dead, it's been on life support for years. And then it went into all the details of why it won't work. And it even talked about 2022. What happened in the bond market in 2022?
The bond market had the worst year in history in 2022, which is largely not reported. 08 was one of the big, 08, 09 was one of the biggest financial declines you've ever had in history. That's just widely talked about and discussed.
All the time.
But the bond market in 2022 was equal to what happened to the stock market in 2008. Yet it's not in 2009. It's not even talked about. It's mind-blowing.
Nobody even talks about it. It's unbelievable. And so the idea was all these people that were with these big box firms that still have their money invested, which is, listen, I'm talking about, I don't want to quote a percentage, I don't know, but I'll bet you most 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds are in some sort of their version of a 60-40 portfolio. Would you say that's most likely true?
For sure. For sure.
Okay. So guess what happened? In a good market, which they had seen before that, they didn't make enough money on that portfolio because the 60% that was in equities probably had a nice return. The bond market went up a little bit. They had a moderate return, and they had this, quote, conservative kind of return. Then the 22 hit, the bond market, I think it lost just about as much as all the equities did, or more in a lot of cases. So all of a sudden, in a good market, you didn't make enough. In a bad market, you lost all your money. And those people, if they were withdrawing money from their portfolio, what happened? Walmart, and I don't mean for shopping, they're going back to work. Many people, just that one event caused people to have to rethink or restructure their retirement based off of one thing.
1 year.
And 1 year, one thing, one event, 1 year, and there you go. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So the reality is today, people have to learn to think outside of the box. And I'm a Wall Street money manager, just like yourself. Ryan, somebody asked me a question, like if it was up to you and you could just put all my money in one place, where would it be? Well, the greedy side of me, and don't say, oh, that Mark's greedy. We're all greedy. Let's be very clear about it. God's very fair. He gave greed to everybody. I'm not greedy. Well, you're not honest then. So here's the reality. A greedy side might say, I want it all in Wall Street. Why? I make a fee to manage it. And if I get to manage it for the next 30 years, that would be really lucrative, wouldn't it, Ryan?
Absolutely.
But guess what? I'll never manage it for the next 30 years if I put it all on Wall Street, because what's going to happen? Some 22, no matter how good I think our portfolios are, and they're really good, guess what? It doesn't matter. At some point, the market's going to do something out of my control, and that client's going to go to somebody else. They're going to say, oh, yeah, here it is. If you did the XYZ, if you'd have done the ABC, it wouldn't have happened. How easy is that for anyone to do?
Hindsight.
Hindsight. It's the easiest thing ever. So the reality is, when you build, as a fiduciary should, and you build true income planning for a client, all of a sudden, they can be upset when Wall Street doesn't cooperate, but they're no longer dictated to whether or not they go back to work at Walmart because of Wall Street. And that's truly how it has to change. People have to think outside of the box and start getting back to what our grandfathers had, which was the Oldsmobile. Think about how our grandfathers retired.
Had a pension, a gold watch, very little money in the stock market themselves.
Right. Well, what they didn't have, any other money they had, they carried it down to the bank and they got a toaster and a CD.
That's exactly right.
That actually paid a fair amount of money. Our first microwave in the Henry family My dad's family, our first microwave came when he opened up an account at Citizens Southern Bank that gave us a microwave. We thought that was the craziest thing ever. But that's how retirement was done. Well, guess what? When you do retirement that way, if somebody's blessed you with, I don't know, $30 million, I'm sure you know how to divide that up into so many different buckets, it doesn't matter. But let's talk about everybody else that's got 500,000, 5 million. They need a written income plan that provides them contractually guaranteed income. And if they're like me, they're probably going to want it for the rest of their lives or their spouse's life. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, that's a question we always sit down with folks, Mark, is we want to determine what your income sources are and the gap between what you need coming in and what those income sources are. So for instance, maybe I need $100,000 a year in income to live the lifestyle I want to live in retirement. And I've got $50,000 a year from Social Security. I got a small pension of $12,000 a year at $62,000 a year. So I've got a gap of $38,000 a year.
Bingo. It's got to be filled.
It's got to be filled. How do you want to fill it? Do you want to fill it based on uncertainty or certainty?
Right. And here's the thing. People ask me all the time, well, don't you like dividend-paying stocks? I love dividend-paying stocks. I personally own them. But I don't want my income plan set up on dividend-paying stocks because you'll have a company like Walgreens, 94-year history of doing what? Paying dividends. Until when? Right now. That is not a guaranteed income plan. It's a really good stock portfolio. That's great. You should have a stock portfolio. But after you have a written income plan that shows up in your mailbox money on the first, I kind of think of it this way. If I end up being, because I make mistakes or I'm a dummy, and I'm broke on the 25th, guess what? I'll eat out of the refrigerator till the first, and then I'm rich again.
Yeah. Mark, I think a lot of folks got this mentality, and it hasn't helped because it's been a large marketing machine driven by the big bank firms out there, as you call them, the big box retailers. And it happened in 1978 when the Internal Revenue Code, or the 401k plan, was introduced to the Internal Revenue Code. And what happened
didn't become popular till 81.
Exactly right.
But the reality is that's right.
And so we had all these dollars going into the stock market, right? Because the underlying investment in your 401k plan is mutual funds.
That's correct.
You're adding money, your employer's adding money. And so
dollar cost averaging, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But what happened is from about 1980 to the year 2000, we had the biggest melt up in stock market history. The market returned over 1,100% during that 20-year period, which is 3 times the prior 20-year period returns of any 20-year period you go back in time and see.
That's correct.
All right. And so people were running retirement plans in the 90s at 20% annualized returns.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what happened is we move further on down the road and we start having a lot more volatility. The market kind of gets bigger. And now we've got, instead of a lot of dollars chasing fewer stocks, now we've got less dollars chasing all these stocks because we're a capitalistic society. And we move into an era where the stock market has become very, very volatile. Right?
Well, the other side of that, Ryan, and I know nobody talks about this other than you and I have had this discussion, but I can't even, I'm on the news all the time, as you know, and you are, but the reality is they won't even let me talk about something that I think is the biggest concern that people should be looking at. We have over 10,000 of these, quote, boomers retiring every day. Well, that's awesome. But they're no longer putting money into the 401k plan, the IRAs, the 403s, the alphabet soup of retirement accounts that caused that massive melt up. But they're instead doing the opposite. What are they doing?
Taking money out.
Taking money out. This is all happening. It's the greatest generational shift in the world has ever seen. Now, I love the new generations, the Xers, the Zs, and all the others. I'm an X, but all the Zs and all them. But do you really think these younger generations are contributing to these accounts the same way the boomers did? Not even close. You got so many gig workers, and you can like them or dislike them, but they're doing retirement completely different. So there's a massive gap of money flowing in and money is flowing out at a great withdrawal rate. And why is nobody preparing for what we know is coming? This has to happen. It's just math.
Just math.
And all of them are hitting Social Security at the same time.
Which is in trouble in itself.
It just, and nobody's preparing us for that. And it doesn't mean I don't like Wall Street. I love Wall Street. It's still the best place to have your growth bucket, your maximum growth with risk bucket. How much should it be? That depends on the person. But it's never going to be an income plan for anyone. And it was never designed to be an income plan.
Let's dive deeper. We've said the word income plan a couple of times. Give me some ways that you would build an income plan for someone who wants contractual guarantees of income. How does that work? Where do we get it? Where do we go?
Yeah, there's truly only one way to do it. And that does not mean when I say this that I dislike real estate, because I love real estate investors. I think it's a great diversity in a portfolio to have that. And you can certainly have rental income from that. But again, when I look at actual income, not diversity, income needs to be contractually guaranteed, and it cannot stop until you stop taking life. Personally, I'd like to have it where I would create a pension, let's say, for my wife, Terry, and I. And if we take our very first trip in retirement and the boat sinks, I used to say the plane crashes, but that's gotten too real lately. So let's say the boat sinks, and all the money I put into my pension for Terry and I, and we both pass away, I would want all that money not to go to the pension company. I'd want, hey, he died, we don't have to pay it out. No. I would like to use some form of a pension company that would still return that money to my children. Now, in most examples, certainly what I would be doing is I would be funding that with IRA dollars. And people don't realize they can actually take an IRA, which is an individual retirement account. I worked all those years, and the truth is, Terry spent those 31 years taking care of me. I mean, taking care of the kids. I always get that wrong, Ryan. Any women listening know the truth. But she didn't fund her 401 like I did. But what most people don't realize is there's no such thing as a joint 401 or a joint IRA. I don't remember that one. Do you, Ryan?
No, IRA stands for individual retirement account, not joint retirement account.
However, I can take a portion of my IRA and I can fund a pension company and make it a joint pension with my IRA dollars. So now her name is on it as well. And all of a sudden, we now have this joint pension funded with IRA dollars that provides contractually guaranteed income for Terry and I's life as long as we live. And the cool thing is, if we die early because the boat sinks, then the kids get all the money. Unfortunately, it's still an IRA, so they're going to be forced to do what, Ryan?
Got to pay tax.
Pay tax.
Yep.
Got to pay tax. But the high five moment, and people really have a hard time with this concept, but imagine one day, obviously I'll go first because I married up and Terry's younger than me, and men always go first anyway, if we were the same age, most likely. So she goes, I pass away. She keeps getting our paycheck every month, our pension payment every month. She's now sitting with one of the younger advisors at the office, and they say, hey, remember that pension Mark did for you all those years ago? Oh, yeah. Did you get your check last month? Sure did. That's great. Well, guess what? Got the new statement and it's empty. There's no money left. And you're like, what? Oh my gosh, this is horrible. No, this is a high five moment. High five. Because contractually by law, they have to keep paying Terry that payment every single month till she dies. Now, when she dies, do the kids get anything? No, they get nothing out of that. They still got all the other accounts I have. They still get the house, the boat, the car, whatever. But that pension did exactly what it wanted. It provided lifetime income. That's personally how I would start. I would create an income gap just like you talked about. And that doesn't matter if you're in the Carolinas or you're in Dallas or you're in Hawaii. Everything should start with income. Because once you have income, life becomes a whole lot simpler.
Well, and you move from a state of being reliant upon the stock market to dictate the quality of life you live in your golden years versus to be able to go out into the world and spend money with confidence. And I always tell a story, Mark. Imagine being on the Alaskan cruise and you're in reception for a few moments and walk by and all your money's in the market and you pulled a distribution out of your accounts this month to go on this Alaskan cruise. And you happen to walk by, and there's Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business News up there, right? And you just get this blimp. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 3% today, or 5%, or 10%, whatever it is. And then the blip goes off. And now that's the rest of your cruise, is that thing is in your mind, that image is in your mind of the market crashing. and you're terrified and you're trying to get the captain to steer the boat back into reception of the TV so you can find out what the hell's going on with the stock market.
Yeah, what really happened?
Yeah, what really happened?
I can't even imagine what retirement would feel like being like that. It would be like my dad waking up one day and knowing you lost 50% of your investable net worth and having to sell your dream 2-bedroom condo on a golf course.
And that's
what it would be like.
That's exactly right. And so most people don't want to go into retirement with the thundercloud, if you will, a rain cloud of a potential lifestyle change occurring.
No.
And people want to go into retirement and be able to spend money with confidence, but it does take a mindset shift, right?
It does, because they've been told.
Go ahead.
They've been told their whole lives to do it a different way. The reality is, if we could go back to 1981 and tell everybody, oh, be careful, this 401 is not what you think it is, I would honestly almost call it the 401k mistake for a lot of people, because they would have been better off just funding their own retirement and paying taxes on that money, not realizing we could be in a place one day where we're $38 trillion in debt. But I had somebody question me once recently on this pension idea. And they really were putting up a fuss about it. You know, they didn't want to be in any kind of an annuity. They didn't want a pension. They said they hate them. And I thought to myself, well, you know, when someone says they hate an annuity, I don't understand what they're talking about. Which kind? Which one do they hate? The variables? I don't know. Maybe we could agree on that. I don't know. But you're telling every teacher that's ever worked 30 years as a teacher, my daughter, as you know, is a teacher, and you're telling every one of them that they shouldn't get a pension when they retire. You're telling every hardworking firefighter, every hardworking police officer, they shouldn't have that pension, because those are all delivered to them in the form of an annuity. But they really had a question about it. And so I asked them a question. I said, do you remember the last time you applied for a job and this person had been at work almost 26 years? And I said, he goes, oh yeah, I remember it. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. When you went and interviewed for the job, and then they finally got you back for the second interview, and it sounded like it was going to be serious, and they said, hey, we think we're going to offer you this job, and you said, well, great, let's discuss the pay. And they said, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. You wanted the job, but don't worry about don't worry about the pay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine, Ryan. Don't worry about the pay. You'll be fine. Ryan, would you have taken your first job like that, or your third job, or any job in your lifetime with not knowing what the pay is going to be?
No way. You physically can't, because if I got to make X amount of dollars each month to cover my bills, and
I don't care how bad I want the job, I ain't taking it.
You can't. Mathematically, you can't unless you know the numbers.
Why would anyone, regardless of how good your planner is, how good your big box firm is, why would anyone start heading into a 25, 30-year retirement with no written income plan that is guaranteed to last the rest of their lives, after taxation, adjusted for inflation, and you can never run out of money? Why would anyone start retirement not knowing what they're going to make? Oh, because I have this number, I have this number, I have this number. That is not an income plan, Ryan. And I couldn't be more passionate about this. They don't have to want to work with me. They don't have to want to work with you. But they should never go into retirement without a written income plan, regardless of how many times their current big box advisor tells them, you're going to be fine.
That's a big gamble to take with somebody saying you're going to be fine. You know what FINE stands for, by the way, Mark?
I don't.
It stands for fearful, irrational, neurotic, and emotional. And
there's the answer.
You're going to be just fine.
I don't want to be any of those things.
No, I don't either. But if you think about it, if your income and your lifestyle is a derivative of the ups and downs in the market, you can do it. And plenty of people have, all right? But you're going to have a retirement that is not as fun.
It's not living large.
It's not living large. And you're going to wonder sometimes where that next check is going to come from. And what's really interesting to me, Mark, is a lot of men, and I'm not berating women out there. There's plenty of powerhouse, total kick butt girls out there and ladies out there for sure, okay? But a lot of times we see as advisors, the men are kind of in charge of the financial plan. This is mind-boggling to me, because the wife is going to outlive the husband, and she's going to be the one who finds out if the husband's financial plan actually worked out or not.
And that's a horrible thing. I don't want to know what the women are going to say to the men when they all get to heaven and get to discuss it. I can't even imagine. Hopefully they'll say it didn't matter. But the reality is I don't want to be on that end of the conversation. And, at the end of the day, I did a article the other day. I was invited on this conference, and they were talking about something called the Grays divorce. And I was like, I don't even know the Grays. Do you know the Grays, right? It's a big deal. The Grays are divorcing. I didn't either. Well, it turns out it's a new alarming trend of married couples 65 years and older divorcing. And
Wow.
It's called the Gray divorce, not the Gray family,
all right.
the Grays. And that's how ignorant I was. So I really loved this whole thing, though, because this is a big deal. It's happening all the time. I think it's terrible. But what you just talked about is exactly why women, by and large, always should be involved in the financial planning. One, it's been my experience, they're smarter than we are anyway. But they need to be involved because what we're seeing with this Gray divorce is for the first time in 30 years, they ran the entire household, but now they're divorced and they have this half of the money and no idea what to do with it or how it should be done because they haven't done it. And it should always be done jointly, in my opinion. There can be one person that might spearhead it, but both parties, men or the women, need to know where all of it's being done and why it's being done the way it is.
No question about it, Mark. And let's talk about a ramification of that. What's the widow's tax?
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? So when you think about what people don't prepare for is all the things that happen when the husband passes away. So let's use that, say in this example, let's say it's the woman that's married. It could be the woman going first, but let's use the traditional, what we see most likely, what you've seen and what I've seen. Husband passes away first. So life's good. All of a sudden they pass away. What's the first thing that happens to that family? They lose income. Is that correct?
That's it. They lose it. A Social Security check is gone.
Automatically.
And maybe even a pension if they didn't take their pension the right way, if they have one.
Very likely, if there was any kind of a small pension or a big pension, it could be gone as well. But day one, right in the middle of the chaos, the grieving, we now have a loss of income. And people don't plan for that. Now, they say, well, it's going to be cheaper to live by themselves. Has that been your experience for clients, Ryan?
It has never been my experience.
Not even once. The only thing that may go down is cost of medicine if the other person was sick and they had, in the donut hole or had higher medical expenses.
I've seen travel expenses go through the roof, by the way, the other way.
Exactly right. Because the one person couldn't travel because of their health. They passed away potentially, and the other one now says, I can go do some travel.
Or they want to go travel and do stuff because they feel lonely and lost and
right.
They want to go spend
Just
time with
girlfriends
friends.
are asking, and they want to get out of the house because they're missing me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure Terry will be missing me terribly, of course, So that's going to happen. But what other things happen? Most likely they're going to eat out more. Why? It's too inconvenient to cook for yourself.
Sure.
So all these things happen. Inflation, I can tell you right now, one of the things that we have to talk about, and I know you're getting to that, but is inflation. And people say, oh, it's high inflation, it's high inflation. No, forget all that. Yes, it is. But I know personally that the Wheeless household inflation is higher than it once was. You say, what are you talking about? Why is my household inflation higher? It's just like mine. Mine's higher. I used to love to take care of my lawn. I took great pride in keeping my lawn maintained the way it should be. Do you believe I still mow my grass, Ryan?
I know for a fact you don't, but you have quite a bit of grass to mow.
That's correct. And I don't. And it's not because I'm not capable. I'm capable, but my time has become too valuable. So I increase the inflation rate in my home to pay someone to do that job. Well, think about part of this widow's tax being there are things that most likely the husband was still taking care of, jobs he was still doing, that now we're going to have to pay someone to do. Where's that accounted for in this plan that they don't have? Because they don't have it to begin with. But why wasn't those things accounted for? And I know in your firm, that is the questions you talk about. It's this idea of bringing up all the unexpected that their current big box planner has never even talked to them about it.
Well, and what happens to the tax situation?
Well, the widow's tax ultimately goes to this right here. They were paying taxes called married, filing, let me think about it for a second. It might be jointly. Is that correct?
That's it, bud.
And what bracket did she move into? So we cut her income. We raised the household inflation. We caused her to start spending more. And then we threw her in the highest tax bracket there is.
Yeah.
Why is there not a widow's bracket?
Well, it's
The lowest available. There should be, not a single, a widow's bracket.
It's one of the largest penalties hidden in the tax code, if you ask me.
It's completely by design, in my opinion.
I agree that and the the whole RMD thing and the 10-year rule. But and hey, we're talking about it now.
Right. But at the end of the day, Ryan, ask me this. Why, and I know in Texas it's no different than Charlotte. Why did no one ever talk to your clients that come in to see you about this until one of your advisors sat down with them?
Well, it's a big bone I've got to pick with not only the CPA industry, but also the financial advisor industry. Because if you go work at a Fisher or a Jones or whatever you want to go to,
all of them,
they all, Ray J, the people you talk to at the bank, they are not allowed to offer tax advice to prospects and clients. And guess what?
Period.
Mark Henry and Ryan Wheelis are not CPAs. We're financial advisors, and we're good ones.
And we hold a certain license.
That's exactly right. Series 65 fiduciary license, to be exact.
And many of those bankers might hold the same license. They might.
Very well might. But what?
However, they're not acting in a fiduciary manner, most likely, are they?
They are not. And here's what makes us different, unique to that, the tax situation. And we'll get fiduciary in a second because that's a big one, all right? Is there are ways advisors know how to mitigate tax liability in retirement and before retirement. And if you go talk to one of these big box retail firms or the bank, the financial advisor there is going to tell you to go talk to your CPA. Your CPA is going to go tell you to talk to your financial advisor. The next thing you know, the CPA's got one ping pong paddle. The advisor at the bank or big box retail place has the other one, and they're playing ping pong. And guess who the ball is? You are. You are.
That's exactly right.
So, Mark, give me some ideas of how you work and I work the same way, how we could help clients mitigate tax liability going into retirement while also in retirement.
Well, as you know, one of the first things I tell people, if you really want to know if you're working with the right firm, and there's many good ones out there, I think we work in a very honorable field, and I meet way more people that I think do a good job than I ever meet that I think do a bad job. It's this idea, though, Six Sigma kind of an idea where you just don't know what you don't know. That's the whole intent of Ryan's television show, his radio show, his podcast, just like my own, is to get knowledge out there. To get knowledge out there, to make you think differently than you're currently thinking. That's the whole idea. So with that said, I've often said, if you want to know if you're working with a good firm, tell me about the call you received in October, maybe November, but it better not have been after November gets too close to the deadline, where they said, hey, you had a pretty good year last year. I know your clients had a pretty good year, didn't they, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell me about the call you received from your 401 person that manages it, your big box firm, where they called you and said, hey, man, it's been a great year so far. I hope it finishes like this. You're up. You say, yeah, I know. I say, great. Hey, it's time for you to come down here and take the Roth Conversion Challenge. Let's see how many of those gains, how many of those hard-earned dollars that finally went up for us, we could take out of your 401k, out of your IRA, and move them to a tax-deferred account where you'll never pay tax on the money again. And let's kick this can down the road. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's come down here. Don't know if we can, but let's come down here and take that challenge. And the reality is nobody got that call working for the big box firms. And I don't want to pick on them, but it's as easy as this. Ryan, you know in your heart why they didn't get it, and I know why. And the audience does too, but they don't want to think about it. Bottom line is, let's say this client, the Joneses, came in and they had $1 million in their 401. It was up and it's doing really good. And we look at their taxes. We're not preparing their taxes. Ryan, you're not preparing their taxes, are you?
No, we don't do tax preparation.
No, but you do advanced tax planning.
Exactly right.
And we say, hey, what's your income this year? Okay, got it. And we have CPAs that we can confer with, which we do confer with, just like you do. That's fine, but for something like this, might not even be needed because we look at it, we say, well, look at this. We could take $100,000 out of that $1 million IRA you have, that $1 million 401. We could move it to your Roth and keep you in the 20% bracket you're already in. And that would cost you, hypothetically, in this example, $20,000. So all of a sudden, you agree, so we're going to take this 100 out of the million. We move it over to your right-hand pocket. Now it's in your Roth. How much goes in there? Not 100, because your favorite uncle is going to take 20,000 of it. And now you end up with 80,000 in that bucket. But guess what? Whose money is it, Ryan?
It's your money.
100% your money, and all the future gains is whose money? It's their money. So that sounds awesome. Well, hold on a second. Why didn't they get the call? Because that big box firm was being paid to manage $1 million. After they do this conversion, which is in your best interest, we all agree it's in your best interest. But now they're being paid to manage $980,000 because $20,000 got removed to pay the taxes. And that equals a pay cut and a shareholder revolt, and they're going to not do it. That's reality. But the reality is, it's not Mark Henry's money, and it's definitely not Ryan's money. It's your money. Guess what? We're supposed to do the right thing each and every time. And if it's in your best interest, we're supposed to tell you about it. Now, we don't do it for you because guess what? You're going to have to approve it and say yes. But an advisor is supposed to do what? Advise. Hey, it would be our advice with this much money in a 401? Yeah, that might be a good idea. Now, if you're sitting there with $300,000 in the 401, it's probably not a good idea to move $100,000 over. But it might be a good idea to move $30,000 over, $40,000, whatever works in the brackets you're in. Sometimes we have to tell you, hey, you're paying too much to the government. I wouldn't do it. You have to tell them that, don't you, Ryan?
What's mind-boggling, absolutely. And what's mind-boggling to me, Mark, is I had Mary Beth Franklin, the Social Security expert, on the podcast, and she is just a gem of a human being, by the way.
Right.
And she disagreed.
Smart as they come.
It really is. She disagreed with me on this, and that's okay. I asked her if she thought that health care or taxation would be the bigger expense in retirement. She thought it was health care. And I said, well, in some cases, I could see Alzheimer's going into a long-term care facility, outliving your long-term care policy, coverage, that sort of thing. Sure. But I believe taxation is going to be your biggest expense in retirement. Just take your example right now. You got $1 million in your 401k, Mark. How much of that $1 million is your money?
It's this unknown. At today's tax rate, I can tell you how much it is. Go back into the 40s, I can tell you how much it was. Think about that famous president that was a movie actor. What was his name?
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and he was married to who?
Well, back then it was Jane Wyman.
That's right. I knew you would know that.
Yep.
You just stumped the audience, though, because they all thought it was Nancy.
That's exactly right.
And that's exactly right. But remember, he was contracted to make 3 Westerns that year, and he was paid $100,000 per Western, as my recollection recalls it, and the 3rd Western put him in the highest tax bracket. And so all of a sudden, 91% went to the federal government of that $100,000. It left him with $9,000. And California taxes, or maybe it was 93%, but whatever it was, the highest taxes we've ever seen, the California taxes took more than was left. So he got in a lawsuit because he said, you can't force me to go to work and pay this much in taxes and go backwards for making a movie. Now, people say, well, that was a fluke. Well, it was a fluke. It only happened one time, 1 year. How about the 18-year history where the top tax bracket's higher than 80%? 80% or higher for 18 straight years. Do you think that's a fluke?
Not a fluke at all.
Well, however messed up we think America is right now, being $38 trillion in debt and can't see which way to go, let me tell you something. It's not as, it was way better then. Way better. And yet we had those kind of tax brackets. So don't tell me taxes can't go up in our future.
Well,
and I would tell you, I think taxation might be bigger than market volatility.
Oh, for sure. And here's what's really interesting is, the big beautiful bill has passed the House. It's heading to the Senate, and they're going to have their way with it and do all their kabuki theater they're going to do. But ultimately, it is pretty clear, I believe, that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act tax
Will get
brackets will get extended and be here for the
Correct.
future, right? So I've actually seen people come about now go, Ryan, that Roth stuff you guys were talking about, those conversion things, I'm not as worried about that stuff now because these tax brackets are being kicked out into the future.
Correct.
What's mind-boggling to me, though, Mark, is people with that attitude or mentality don't understand that they're going to go through in a 30-year retirement, 20 election cycles.
Correct.
And nothing in Wall Street's permanent.
Not at all.
Not at all.
And the other part of that, too, is
nothing in Capitol Hill's permanent.
All it tells me is the greatest tax window in American history got propped open for a little while. I didn't say permanently opened. I said they took a prop and they stuck it in the window, and it's now open, which allows us a little more time to do these conversions methodically to get you. But let's say they're right, Ryan. Let's say tax brackets stay exactly where they're at, so I have no reason to worry about it. Okay. Well, you obviously don't like your kids very much.
You're right.
Which part of that big, beautiful bill fixes what was destroyed, called the inherited IRA?
Nothing.
Because, as you know, nothing fixes it. It's gone. It's never coming back, in my opinion. And guess what? When you leave that $2 million IRA to your kids, that $1 million IRA, they currently have 10 years to get all the money out, which means it's going to force them into the highest brackets ever. And guess what? You're going to give them a gift that they didn't really receive. And you're going to sit there, and whether you like the administration that's in at that time or not, you're going to allow that administration to be getting all kinds of your hard-earned dollars without leaving them to your kids.
Mark, this is how bad that 10-year thing is, okay?
Bad.
If you've got a $2 million IRA or 401k, or even more than that, you likely put 2 kids through college, maybe 3, all right?
Yep.
And hopefully the kids get out. They're not working at Starbucks. They're actually using the degree you paid for.
Hopefully.
Okay? They get out there in the world and they're making some money. They're making $200,000 a year, all right?
Yeah.
They're not married. Mom and dad die, leave a $2 million 401k behind, or IRA, what do you want to call it, behind. Now they've got to take $200,000 a year plus growth out of that
Correct.
account each year. So now their income is over $400,000 a year.
Thank you.
And now they're at the highest, they're currently 37% tax bracket.
Correct.
So 37% of mom and dad's money, nearly 40, okay, is going to the IRS. Here's what's crazy. I'm actually having conversations right now with my older clients. I'm getting the kids involved, and I'm saying, hey, kids, you're going to get this money. Mom and dad cannot spend it. They are where they are, okay, and they can't spend it. So I'm bringing kids into the picture now to go, hey, listen, we need to start doing Roth IRA conversions now. And guess who I'm getting to pay the taxes, Mark? I'm having the kids pay the taxes on mom and dad's IRA money and doing Roth conversions. And they're thanking me for it. They're like, whoa, are you serious? This is major, right? And so even my situation, my parents are, they're in my mom's mid-70s, my dad's late 60s. We're not there yet.
Right.
But I'm already having conversations with them. Hey guys, you know, my dad, he can't spend money at all. He'll have $100,000 a year in income. So I'm going to fill up that 12% tax bracket.
Sure.
And I'm going to pay the taxes on the Roth IRA conversions myself, because if I don't do that now, when I inherit that money down the road, I'm going to have a tax time bomb in my hands.
That's exactly right. And so the reality is, regardless of tax rates, which I believe in my heart will go up eventually, because like you just said, there'll be 8 or 9 elections or whatever it is, and somebody's going to mess with it and go back to a different way of thinking. But the reality is, getting money into a tax-free position, and there's more. I kind of think of it this way. What are your options when it comes to tax-efficient planning? Do nothing and pay taxes at an unknown rate in a later time in the future, or leave it to your kids to fight the problem.
That's the government's plan, by the way. And they
That's
love
what they
that
want
plan
you to
for
do.
themselves. That's exactly
They want
right.
you to do that. That's why they extended the RMDs. They don't want you to take your RMDs. They wish you'd just keep deferred. Everybody said, no, that was a good thing. 70 and a half went to 72 and 73. Now I don't have to take. No, they want you to leave it to your kids.
Exactly right.
Listen, they talked about, and we were only a few votes short of it being a 5-year withdrawal rate if it was more than 200,000, 250,000 in the account. Imagine how if that would have got passed. And it was only a vote or two that didn't keep it from it. So we have to think about the future if you want that money to be distributed fairly. And even for people that don't have children, they say, that's not as big a deal for me. Okay, well, tell me how many of your hard-earned dollars you really want to give to the government. Do you want them to get 40% or 50%? Because if you do, good for you. Personally, I love America, and I want them to get their fair share. I don't think their fair share of my hard-earned money is anywhere near 40% or 45%. What do you think, Ryan?
I totally agree. I think it's absolutely absurd, and nobody I know that has wealth wants to give wealth away at a tax rate of 37%.
Correct.
And that's under current regime.
Correct.
And, we look at $37 trillion in debt, $38 trillion in debt. You go to usdebtclock.org. It's just ticking, tick, 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 tick all the time. But more importantly, Mark, we've got a major shift of people depending upon Social Security and Medicare going in for the next 30 years. And if you look at the unfunded liabilities of those alone, it's $78 trillion. All right. Yeah. And we're taking in $4.5 trillion in tax revenue a year. Right. I mean, the dog
doesn't work.
Hunt.
The math does not work.
So at some point in time, you have to know that the legislative risk that we're dealing with right now is prevalent. And just like Mark talked about with this what do we call it? The Secure Act, setting Americans up for secure retirement. That's not what it was for. That's setting up Americans for taxation. That's exactly what it was about, right?
So they're 100% about that. And it sounds so bad when you say it that way, but let's be very clear that we took the issue of retirement off the backs of employers, put it squarely on the backs of the people earning the money, and then now we're causing them to pay an exorbitant amount of taxes because they saved all this, and they have no secure income plan. They have no way to retire without being worried their entire lives, watching the markets and all. And that's why firms like yours exist, because it doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't
have to be. People can live large. And Ryan, would you agree with this? And of course, I'm asking a question I already know the answer to. So for the audience, I already know the answer. I know exactly how I was going to answer it. But I believe so firmly that it's not about the number. That personally, they say we're not supposed to have favorite clients, but what's the truth, Ryan? Do you have favorites?
For sure. Absolutely.
And I promise you, some of your favorites are just like mine. They're not your highest net worth clients, are they?
No, they're not.
And so when people say, like, what's your minimum? What do you have to work with a firm like yours or a firm like mine and stuff? I truly believe, and I know you believe the same thing, it's not about some number. I don't believe the quality of someone's management should be determined by how well God blessed them with money or how well they were able to manage it during their careers. They shouldn't have paid for the college, but they did, so they don't have as much. Some people shouldn't pay for college for their kids. That's the truth, but they do it anyway, and it leaves them in a position maybe in retirement that they shouldn't be in. But we don't look at it that way. I think about personally, one of my favorite clients is this lady named Donna, and you would just love her, Ryan. She doesn't have enough money to work with a firm like mine or yours, and she's truly one of my favorite clients of without question. And during COVID, in her 70s, during COVID, she took her motorcycle, rode it out to the West Coast, spent 4 months on the road touring the entire West Coast, all the way through California and Arizona and all these states. And I remember seeing her and asked her, Donna, how did you do this? I know what your spending plan is. I know how much money you have. She goes, Mark, it was incredible. I was $6 a night in the tent sites, and about every 10 days, I got a Motel 6. Listen, this lady, she's never been married. She told me she always wanted to be. She got in her 50s, she said, and got close a couple times, and it never happened. She said, the next thing I knew, I woke up 55 and grumpy, and I said, I'm never getting married. But literally, she'll leave money to nieces and nephews if long-term care doesn't come her way. And she is the best definition I have of living large. It's not about a number. It's about using what you've been blessed with to enrich your lives and the lives of others. And that starts with a written plan, not some hope on Wall Street. Wall Street's not going to save these people that are all invested in it. It will not be their savior, will it?
No, it will not. In fact, the other side of that is there's people on Wall Street who are trying to destroy your retirement.
There's no question about it.
And that's a fact. If you're sitting there and the market's up, all right,
that's right.
You've ridden the market up and you retire.
Yep.
And now you're getting that paycheck each month.
Every time.
And all of a
Taking it
sudden,
out.
we have the 20% decline we experienced earlier this year with the tariff. We call it the tariff tantrum, by the way.
Yeah.
The market goes through the tariff tantrum. Market goes down 20%. All right. There's a guy on Wall Street. He is hanging out in bonds and safe money. He's just hanging out. He's waiting for an opportunity. So you ride that 20% down. You still got plenty of money, but you're like, hey, that 20%, I'm done. I've reached my limit. You decide to sell. All right, here's what happens. This guy, this hedge fund guy, comes out of his bonds, out of his safe money. He exchanges that money for your stocks at a low price point. Okay? Now he's holding your stocks. Market goes back up, gets back to even, right back where you are now. All right? And guess what happens? You start getting FOMO. You're like, I'm missing out. I got to get back in. So what do? You come back in, you buy those stocks back from the hedge fund guy. Okay? He goes back into his safe money. You bought your stocks back at a higher price point, and they're just sitting there hanging out, waiting for you to do it again. And folks, if you don't believe that that's the way Wall Street works, I have another thing for you. All right.
Right.
It is absolutely the way it works. And quite frankly, Mark, I have a big belief. If you can't stomach a 20% hit to your portfolio overnight like that, you have no business having $1 of your money in the stock market. One thing I want to leave folks with as we start to wrap up here is, Mark and I specialize in retirement. And retirement is not about how much money you have. Retirement is about how much income you have. And to build the proper retirement plan, don't put yourself in a situation to where you're 100% reliant on the performance of the stock market to dictate the quality of life you're looking to live in your golden years, the life you've earned the right to live in your golden years.
That's right. That's right. It's not about chasing the return. And that does not mean that Ryan doesn't like making big returns, because he gets the thrill of that just like I do. And it's different size buckets for different clients depending upon what you've kept, what you have. But Wall Street was never designed to be a lifeline. It's designed where you put the extra. Think about it this way. If you get to the 29th and you have to eat out of the refrigerator for 2 days, but on the 1st, your account's reloaded and you're ready to go for at least another 29, 30 days, you're not going to worry about the markets near as much. When clients come in that have written income plans, they do, Ryan, they'll come in and they might be upset about the market. And guess what they do? They say, hurry up and fix it. I'll see you in 6 months. Because they can still go to South Myrtle Beach. They can still go down to the beach in Texas and enjoy a living large retirement, and one that they deserved. It's a confident financial future versus one that's based on hope.
You and I have been preaching the confident financial future message for 15 plus years.
That's right. That's where it's all at.
Well, that'll do it for today's interview, Mark. Thank you so much for
Thanks for having me on. This was fabulous, Ryan. I really enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you for coming on, bud. And it's just so great to see all your success. And you just helped so many people retire well in the 21st century, brother. Always good to share thoughts.
Take care.
Subscribe to Redefine Retirement on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.